One form is the person who's trying to save the other, and the person who's trying to save the other is dependent on being a savior for the other person, and the person trying to be saved is dependent on the help from the other person to be okay. So that's like the most obvious, but sometimes it's both on both ends.
I was going to say, a lot of times it's like sometimes one direction, the other
exactly.
direction,
So like you're trying to save the other person's trying to save you, and then you both don't realize you're simultaneously drowning.
How I love to vibe when I'm vibing with you. How I love to vibe when the vibing is true. How I love to vibe when I'm vibing with you. We're vibing, we're vibing, we're vibing, we're vibing. It's Mike and Cass vibing out.
Just repping our merch here.
Always, always, always. Hello, beautiful spirit.
Beautiful spirit, how are you?
Good. Good to be here.
Yes.
Good to be with you. Good to be with
too.
you all. As always, welcome first of all. This is Mike.
I'm Cass.
This is Mike and Cass vibing out. Our season finale of season 2. As always, we want to hold space for your highest self. We want to be the catalyst for your growth. We want to be that space for you of unconditional love, and know that we're always rooting for you. And once again, ultimately be the catalyst for your growth and you being your highest and best self always. Let them know where they can find us, Cass.
You can find us on any podcast platform. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube if you want to watch these videos instead. We got a TikTok, Instagram, MK Vibin' Out, and then our website, mkvibinout.com.
Awesome. And I actually remembered this time. And before we get into it,
the only episode of the entire season. Exactly. We always want to start with a few conscious breaths. It's so powerful to recenter in this moment. So as long as you're not driving, but if you're driving, still join us in the breaths, but don't close your eyes. But if you're at home or wherever you are, if you're able to close your eyes right now, give yourself permission to be completely centered in this moment. Take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, out through your mouth. One more time, in through your nose, and sustain the breath and hold it. Set a powerful intention for yourself, whatever you feel like you're in the need of right now, love, peace, power, whatever it is. Release. And as always, you want to notice how you feel and notice yourself feeling more peaceful, more centered in this moment. And as always, we encourage you to make this a daily practice for you to set alarms for yourself throughout the day to recenter and start fresh and start again. I'm so excited for this episode. Me too. It feels like it's been forever since we've recorded, and it's just, I'm excited. This will be a fun one. We're talking about a fun topic.
Yes. So without further ado, we're talking about self-love and relationships. Something that never gets old for any of us. It's something that we all deal with daily basis. You can't run from it, so let's run into it. And get into it. Wherever you want to start, as always, it's a free flow. We never plan anything out.
And this is like a broad subject, which is kind of fun. And we can obviously in future episodes go more detailed into things, but I kind of like just keeping it broad too, because there's lots of avenues we could go down.
Absolutely. So we said both self-love and relationships because one can't be without the other. So the lack of self-love often dictates the relationships we do have. So making sure that you always start with that within yourself. We've all had relationships, that show, where we are in life, as we learn the things we do and we don't want, as we learn about ourselves. And, a lot of times we're hard on ourselves, like when we allow ourselves to be in relationships that aren't necessarily conducive for our higher self, but it's all just a part of the journey. I just want to start out just by saying, if any point in your life or even right now, if you feel like you're not worthy of like the highest and best you can imagine, that's not the truth. Regardless of what you may tell yourself, whatever that ideal situation that is for you, that you're completely worthy of it. You're worthy of being loved completely and fully for exactly who you are, and understanding and appreciating that for yourself. Part of the self-love practice is crucial, and one thing that, I just want to say before I forget is, being mindful and careful of who you give your heart to, and valuing your heart enough not to give it away so easily. And that doesn't mean not having an open heart and being unconditional loving to everybody, but make sure, do you think about like this person that you might be thinking about going to, specifically an intimate relationship, but this can even be with close friendships. Do you trust that person to value and take good care of your heart in every way? To love you unconditionally, to be trustworthy, to be kind, to be sensitive, be compassionate, to really take care of your heart. We give our hearts away, I think, way too easily a lot of times.
Yeah.
And just go
They
straight
get
in.
stuck in situations, get attached, like we've all probably been in some situations where we feel stuck or something, and I feel like that's a big part of it, is we don't maybe know somebody enough before giving away that part of ourselves, that just our actual heart and our actual love. And and I guess it's hard to put that into words and like practice, because I know what you're saying, but it's also like, how do you balance that with like being vulnerable and open and really loving and stuff, and not closed off? Because I feel like some people may hear that and be like, oh, I should close myself off from people before I trust them, and that gets into like having trust issues and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
It's more of an energetic, internal thing where you're not closed off at all. You're just protecting yourself in like a healthy way.
Right
I
on.
guess.
I think it's important to reiterate, like I mentioned before, that's why I wanted to preface, like being open-hearted and loving and unconditionally loving, period, to everybody. We should try our best to love everybody, as difficult as that is sometimes. So, always operate from that space. But even if you can consciously, first of all, that's when it comes back to self-love again, knowing your worth, knowing your value, and knowing you're deserving of a complete, loving, beautiful relationship, somebody who really honors and appreciates you in all the ways that you want. So even if you just consciously say to yourself, I'm gonna be mindful of who I give my heart to. I'm gonna make sure that they're worthy of taking care of my heart. And then also on the other end, being honest, are you worthy? Are you in a place where you will take care of that other person's heart? Just as good as you would take care of your own, or better.
Right.
And both of those things are true. So I think even just consciously saying that and just being aware of it,
and asking yourself questions, being honest and stuff,
can like slow down the process and be like, hold up, because like when you meet somebody and you're excited, and whether it's like you're physically attracted to them, or or that extra energy, and like where you're really attracted, a lot of times we jump in and we have like these preconceived notions, and we project on that other person all these qualities that may or may not be there. And then we go in without knowing, like, who is this person that I'm giving this to. And a lot of times we don't even know who's coming to the table on our end, which comes back to the self-love.
Say it's all a reflection. Like, every person that's in your life, it's not a reflection of maybe directly who you are, but it's reflecting something. They're reflecting something that's happening within you, whether that is like a trait you have that they are projecting, and you can kind of tie that in, and it's really just explicitly kind of that, or it's something like
that you feel like you may be missing or lacking.
That, and it could be a lot of different things, but it's all a reflection. And so I'm kind of want to go into this other direction, which I'm curious about your thoughts on this. I feel like a lot of us, we hear that you should be full within yourself first before, like, having a partner or something like that. And although I do agree with that, like we should be filling our own cup, we can't just go into a situation expecting somebody else to make us full, because that's not ever gonna happen. We're whole within ourselves, but we're never gonna be fully healed. Like, yes, you can be fully healed, but it's not like I don't believe that we have to wait till we like think we have no problems ever, nothing else to work on, because that's never really gonna realistically happen for people. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on just like when is the right time in your own self-love journey to also be able to healthily share that with someone else?
I think that is such a brilliant question, and it could be something that's really hard to navigate, you know, but
and I don't know the answer really.
Within that, how I feel about that, there is a foundation that you should have of loving yourself, accepting yourself, you know, on a level where you realize you have things to grow, but like realizing that you're even loving those parts of yourself that need to grow, you know, so starting with that and knowing that you're worthy, you know, so if you don't know that you're worthy of the highest and the best, you shouldn't be, you know, venturing out, you know, for something to do that. Loving yourself completely is like, like you said, we're never going to stop growing. We never stop becoming the next version of ourselves. So you shouldn't close yourself up to opportunities. But I do believe there needs to be a foundation of confidence and self-love within yourself. Because if you don't love yourself on a basic level, not that we can't all love ourselves more and more and more, but if the foundation of self-worth and self-love isn't there, we're automatically opening ourselves up, you know, to situations, even when people maybe didn't intend to take advantage of us, but just by default of us feeling a lack of that, people, you know, taking advantage of that, or, you know, bringing out qualities of that person because we don't have boundaries strong enough within ourselves to know our worth, you know, so it's not like an idea of like, oh, I'm perfect now. I have nowhere to grow, you know, I'm Buddha and Jesus like, you know, I'm ready, you know,
and I feel like that's a misconception people have when you say like you need to love yourself first. It's not that you need to be perfect, but you do, I agree with you, you have to have that foundation of confidence and loving every part of yourself. And like, I think intention is big too, just like the intention to grow, because even if you fully like at a certain point fully loved yourself, fully just whatever, but like you didn't have the intention to grow while you're entering this new relationship, then you're gonna end up like falling back into maybe patterns or self-doubt, worry, hate, that kind of stuff. And so I feel like having the intention to always continue growing too, and just trying to learn more about yourself, like having those self-awareness practices as often as possible.
Right on.
Is huge.
So back to like not just what my foundations of that I've learned in relationships. Like I and it's good to reiterate this. I'm glad you said this. You know, I think we may have said this at some point in season 1, but you know, with people that I work with in their relationships, and then just for myself, is the idea of that any important relationship is supposed to be a catalyst for your growth. And I know very few people that go into intimate relationships, which are the most, you know, the most intimate, the most vulnerable, where you can get the most heart, where they go into it like, this individual is supposed to be a catalyst for my growth. And although that's not romantic necessarily, I love love, I love romance, I love the giddiness and all that good energy, but at the same time, in valuing your heart and really understanding that at the end of the day, we're good. No, you're fine. That relationships are supposed to be a catalyst for our growth. And obviously, you know, the universe is wonderful, because we, even through the terrible ones, we're growing. It's just like growing through pain and learning from it, like the things we don't want, and you know, maybe with that, but there's scars a lot of times that come with that as well. But you know, relationships always been a catalyst for your growth. I think it's a great place to start before like it goes to like a level of like serious, like this is my person.
Yeah.
You know, it's different. Hopefully you have enough value within your time and yourself that even if you're just having fun and like just dating or whatever, and you know, it's not going to lead to something, but hopefully at least that person still makes you feel good every time you leave their presence, you know, and they have a certain consciousness and value and respect, you know, for you, you know, and love no matter what it is, you know. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think just foundationally that's so important. It's just a starting point, you know.
And I think this might be just me personally, because I definitely deal with like intimate or romantic relationships a lot different in my mind than like friendships, which of course they're different, but like I have very different like attachments towards each type of person in relationship. But I've noticed that having somebody be the catalyst for your growth, to me at least, is a lot easier to like practice that with friends at first, because there's not that extra like attraction and maybe sexual chemistry or whatever else is kind of like driving us towards that person. And that's like a really good way if you're like, oh, how do I start doing that? Like, how do I find people that are like that? Start with the friends that you either already have, or even better, new friends. Kind of go into it with the intention of how can I learn from this person, grow from this person, maybe being around people that are quote unquote better than you in certain ways that you want to become, you know, like that could go in a lot of different directions.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I found that to be pretty
absolutely. That brings up like a second thing, foundation, like when I've done little seminars like life inventory. So glad you brought that up. Even right now is, you know, inventorying all your friendships and, you know, for sure intimate relationships, are they a catalyst for your growth? And being honest about that. And that's a great thing when you're not as vulnerable to practice with your friends, but making sure the friends you have right now, are they catalysts for your greatest growth? Are you, and even if maybe you guys haven't had that talk, but like let's just hope that you have friends that love you unconditionally, that you're growing with, you know, and that you can bring that up with them now. Let's be
I was gonna say, you should be able to talk to your friends about that if they are truly a catalyst for your growth. If you feel like that's awkward, they're probably not.
Absolutely. And then also within that, ultimately the people that we would have an intimate relationship, there should be a foundation of friendship. Otherwise, to me, that's just, it's fleeting. You know, it's the fleeting thing, you know, because, you know, like with your friends, it eliminates a lot of things. Like when people are just in a when they're attracted to each other and like this intangible energy, and they may like each other in a relationship, but if you don't like the person like down deep to the core of their being, that's not going to last. And then also it eliminates like the foundation of people doing right by each other. You know, like when people get out of integrity, you know, when people cheat or, you know, do things that are harmful, you know, a lot of those things, like for me, it was like always like the long-term relationships I've had, you know, like this person is my friend. I would never want to hurt my friend. Like I would never want to do something to break their trust or do something that will hurt their heart, you know? So, but when that friendship is not there, you know, there's a lot of more selfish, you know, intentions, and it's based on things that often are fleeting.
Yeah,
you know?
That's huge. I've never thought of it like that, from that perspective, and I like that. So, interesting.
Hey fam, hopefully you're enjoying the episode. This is Mike.
This is Cass.
This is Mike and Cass.
Vibing out.
Hey, wanted to remind you to join our email list for everything we have going to stay up to date. What else, Cass?
For our programs, and make sure to check out our website, mkvibingout.com, for our merch. It's some fun stuff on there. You can rep us everywhere you go.
Go get it.
Join us there, and please continue loving our episode and enjoy.
Yes.
And then, like, every time I think of just this topic in general, self-love, as it comes into relationships and stuff, because definitely they're, like, intertwined in so many ways, is codependency. Because that's something I've been dealing with for a while, and I've realized has come up in my own self within romantic relationships, and something I'm working through and have done actually a lot of work recently. Like, I'm proud of myself for ways I've improved on that. But I'm sort of wondering, because like codependency is basically, you can obviously look up like the definition of that, and most people know what that is, but to me it's kind of like an attachment to somebody, usually in some anxious type of way, like maybe stemming from a fear of abandonment or something like that. And a lot of times it does stem from a low sense of self-love and self-worth, because it's feeling like somebody else is supposed to fill some void in you, or if they're not around, you're not okay and you're not whole. If they leave the relationship, or they're being mean to you, or anything like that, you're affected so deeply by it. And so I'm wondering, I guess, your thoughts, and I'll think about mine too. Like, is there a healthy level of attachment towards, especially like a romantic partner? Because that is a different type of relationship than just a friendship. So is there a healthy level of attachment, or is it really non-attachment with just unconditional love?
So I think that's a great question, and words are so important. I would say no as far as attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Attachment is like a less than, and also attaches to like an expectation amongst that person, and like not a fullness within yourself. I think there's
what about like dedication?
I think there's a healthy amount of like admiration, honoring, respect, unconditional love, within it.
Yeah.
And so within that, there's like this honoring of this person, and within that relationship, and a respect for what it is, and there's also within the respect, a work aspect where you guys make a decision that we're going to work on this, and that we a commitment rather than attachment. You make a decision that we're committed to do this together because we want to.
Yeah.
Not I'm attached.
Not I need to.
Yeah, exactly. Attached to you. I choose to be committed to this journey with you, as long as we are making each other better, and as long as we're happy and joyful, and as long as it makes sense in our spirit.
Yeah.
I think that is more so it than anything else. Even though like movies and TV even often tries to romanticize like attachment.
Let's talk about that.
Like if that's if that's okay, and it's not, I complete you, all that BS and all that, all that, and the codependency thing. I'm proud of you. Let me tell you something about this girl. She's super I'm so proud of you for always being honest, about like where you are. Not like acting or being in denial, because it's the hardest thing for any of us to do, is to be really self-aware and look at ourselves and be honest about the things that we need to work on, the things that often are a lot, the most painful when we look in the mirror at ourselves, that, the ego never wants to admit, fault within itself, or things that, that we all need to work on. So I really am proud of you for always being that, and just be able to see the strides, personally in your growth is pretty, it's amazing. But that codependency thing, just if you look at your own lives, a lot of times when we look at it, from one side, there's the person who's trying to save the person on one end, and then we'll go to extremes of it, but I want to get into both sides of it so you can maybe make you aware and make sure there's no aspects of your relationships where this exists, and so one form is the person who's trying to save the other, and the person who's trying to save the other is dependent on being a savior for the other person, and the person trying to be saved is dependent on the help from the other person to be okay. So that's like the most obvious. But sometimes it's both on both ends.
I was gonna say a lot of times it's like sometimes
right,
one
yeah,
direction, the
exactly.
other time,
So like you're trying to
sways.
save the other person's trying to save you, and then you both don't realize you're simultaneously drowning. You're drowning together as you know, supposedly trying to save each other with the best intentions. You know, and we rationalize a lot of times doing good deeds and serving somebody else, but a lot of times to the detriment of ourselves. You know, I mean, we should always be giving and extending and loving, but never at the detriment to our own well-being and the highest and best for our own spirit and our hearts and our happiness.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times just asking yourself, what is my intention with this? Where is the energy coming from? If you're maybe helping somebody else out in a way, that can be a great thing if you're in that energy of like, I would really like to help this person right now, and that would make me feel good and would make them feel good, and it's all around just positive energy. But if it's more so, I feel the need to do this, and especially if that's a consistent thing, and the other way around too, that's not coming from the right energy. And so it just comes back to being really honest with yourself and knowing what you deserve.
Yeah, and then obviously there's codependent relationships that it's not even about help, it's just toxic, period, where people are just attached to this other being in their life.
Maybe a label, maybe
and they know that they argue all the time. They know that this person doesn't make me happy. They know, but they're even attached, and so to the toxicity and like have made the decision that anything's better than being by myself. Like I'm so addicted even to the toxicity, and that's hard to remove yourself from, which circles all the way back to self-love practice of like, once you're in it, it's so much harder to get out compared to like making sure you're mindful and having that foundation before you get in.
Yeah.
Because if you know you're worthy, you'll notice signs and energy. People are pretty transparent. There's a lot of people who are manipulative and, can say all the right things and all that, but you can feel it in your gut. That's not the case. But usually at the very short period of time, people show themselves. And there's like attributes, and so just being able to pay attention, like, that's an interesting reaction. That wasn't
and like
very
really
compassionate.
paying attention, not just brushing things
Right.
off. I feel like a lot of people do that, and then it's like, oh, this came up 3 months later in a really big way,
Right.
and I got a little hint of this at the beginning, but
That's such a good point. Like, oh, that's no big deal.
like, oh, it's just this little thing, but I'm like, what why would they be saying certain things or doing certain things,
Right.
even on a small scale? Like, how would this be on a bigger scale?
It's like, I'm being too hard on them. Does that sound like you? Oh, that's no big deal. I'm being too hard on them, instead of ignoring like your gut of something that bothers you. And it can be a subtle thing, like, oh, that wasn't very, like, it could be eating at a restaurant or something, and the person you're with is rude to the server.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's interesting.
That's so actually that's funny.
Like,
I feel like at restaurants is a really good way to tell who somebody is. Like,
right.
are they like nice to the people, the servers or bartender or like whatever? Do they tip? Do they clean up after themselves? All those things. I'm like, okay, if there's any little
or within that, like, oh, they're talking about themselves an awful lot, or oh, they haven't asked anything about me.
That's true.
Their value systems, they're very concerned about these things, these subtle things. A lot of times, some of us are so hell-bent on things making something be something it's not, that we ignore all these blatant signs where we should be running towards the exit, in that situation, and I'm gonna keep saying this, and you're gonna hear it 100 times, which comes back to self-love and knowing your worth and your value, and it's, if you haven't done this yet, and I probably need to redo this myself, take time to write down your ideal partner and the qualities that they have.
I actually did this the other day. It was very interesting.
Oh, that's awesome. That's crazy. And like, you can do the superficial aspects too, but most importantly, is the energy, how they make you feel, the qualities of this person, the kind, compassionate, they're funny. This is how I feel when I'm around them. Take time to write down all those qualities and feel into that. And you can feel into it with your imagination what it would feel like to be with that person. And it's amazing when you go into, yes, you can go into situations and it's more clear, like, do these people meet these things? And you know, and for those that on the other side of it might be say, well, I don't want to just eliminate, you know, people outside of this thing because maybe this, and this. There's a difference between like people having qualities that you weren't even aware of that you might appreciate, and also them being a catalyst for your growth, where it's like certain things like make you shine a light on yourself and the ways you grow, you know, within that. That's different to pay attention to compared to things that just are not in alignment with your highest good.
Like, I think it's the difference between actual values, like what do you actually value in a relationship and with another person, versus just like maybe your preferences or type in some type of way. You know, there's like a depth to values that aren't, you know, there in like just maybe what you'd like prefer or something, like even a certain hobby that somebody has. Like if that's not a core value for you, that you need that, then okay, yeah, like you can open up to like different options.
Right.
But there's certain things, like if you value someone that's like accepting of others or something like that, that's a pretty big value that you don't want to overlook if someone's showing little signs of not doing that. And I think a really good kind of addition to that practice that I was actually talking to my therapist about, that's why I kind of ended up writing this down the other day, is what kind of partner do you want to be? And that's a question like I had never asked myself, I'd never thought of. Like, of course, I know the person I want to be individually, and I feel like it's usually the same as like who I want my partner to be. Of course, I want to be accepting and open and understanding and compassionate, whatever. But really, like, how do you want your partner to feel? How do you want to treat them? What little things do you want to do for them? Writing that down and, you know, being like, I would love for them to appreciate what I'm doing, and in that way, and the back and forth. And so I love that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then to circle back to self-love again, it's amazing how when you start to really love yourself in a real way, you become more selfless and therefore more conscious of like not just thinking about yourself and what you want from somebody else, but who you want to be for them. Circling back to being a catalyst for each other's growth.
Yeah.
You don't want just to be that person to be a catalyst for your growth. You want to be a catalyst for theirs and be supportive and loving and kind and all these things, that you're just the complete wind at their back in every aspect of their life.
Yeah.
You know, so
you want it to be that back and forth.
That's such a great point, because a lot of times, you know, especially with lack of consciousness, like we come from a very selfish, you know, aspect of life, you know. And so balancing that out, realize within a healthy boundary, you deserve to have everything that you want to have. But if there's nothing in you that wants your partner, for them to have everything that they want to have within a relationship, it's time to like, rewind, go back. Where's the place I'm coming from initially?
Yeah.
You know, have I really gotten this self-love idea down? Have I really gotten the idea of unconditional love? And that makes me think about like all the, you know, we grew up in America, and you know, all these limitations and rules and boxes we put on relationships. So I just want to talk about that, you know, real quick, and just say that realize whatever is true to your heart is okay. It doesn't have to fit in any kind of limited parameter that society has told you that it's supposed to be, you know. And unconditional love is the foundation, number one, but not limiting to yourself or feeling like there's something wrong with you if you want something that's outside of the box from the way you were raised, what you were told yourself, you know, along the way. You have to be really true to your spirit. because relationships show up in several different types of forms, and it really is different strokes for different folks. So honoring what you really want and realize that there's other people out there will be a perfect match to whatever that ideal life is, for you. So many times, like, people say, one, will say be in a marriage, and then they have a kid, right? And from what they were told, they stick around in this relationship that's completely toxic,
Right.
from the idea of being there for the kid, not realizing that the kid is a sponge, taking in all this toxic bad energy. You're setting an example of a relationship should look like, and you think you're doing the right thing when it's completely the wrong thing, with good intentions, not realizing that, children are more resilient than us, and that unconditional love is the most important and powerful thing, and freedom. So that's just like one of the examples, but
That's true.
Within that.
Or even having to follow that path in general. Like, a lot of people do want that, but like, if you don't want to get married, if you don't want to have kids, if you don't want to even like live in the same house as your partner. I've known some people that they're like, no, I just want to live in a different house, that kind of thing. Like, that's, maybe there will be people that don't understand, but if there's something you want outside of the norm, or like what we've been fed is like the right way to go about life, which there's no right way, then go for it. And there's gonna be people that do understand you and do want that too, and with certain things, if something's like a big value to you, even if you could be happy with somebody that didn't align with that specific thing, there's always going to be some sense of maybe resentment or regret, or just wondering like what could be. And that's telling your own mind that you don't think you're worthy of having that, because there's so many people out there. I know we're told that a lot, like there's 7 billion people you can pick from, like, but I think we sometimes forget that, like, literally if you just move to a different state, a different country, like, you're gonna be exposed to so many new people, and there's bound to be like, I don't believe that there's just like one person that's meant for you. That could be a whole other topic, but there's people that do align with exactly what you want and desire if it's coming from the right place.
And move to a different state, and I would say move to a different state of mind. Number one, and if that physically moving, not that that's not, both can be true. I think that's a great point and great example within that. But yeah, moving into the different state of mind of like, because we limit ourselves, and just, let's just be frank, in so many ways in life we've been conditioned to settle, and you made me think about, like, I've had relationships where I call it like 83% right, where I was content, great person, wifey material for most people, and wonderful, but that other 17%,
just something I
knew it wasn't right. And if I would have just settled, I wouldn't have had half of the life experiences that I've had, and also opening up to the opportunity for these, beautiful relationships. I am very much a romantic, and like, I do believe that certain relationships are for a period of time, but I do believe within a gamut of this life that they may be on the other side of the planet, but there is certain spirits on this earth that are meant for you. And it might show up that one is for 5 years, and then it might show up that there's one for a lifetime. But just like from my own life experiences, like the way I met my ex, being from St. Louis, Missouri, and to meet like a soulmate in Stockholm, Sweden. And
like that was meant to happen.
Out of the millions of people there, like, I knew I was meant to meet that person, and the chances of me meeting that person in all logical ways were like 1 in a billion. So I believe there's certain spirits on this earth that are supposed to be, we're supposed to meet, and that's super exciting. To me, but not limiting ourselves or are settling it in any aspect, you know. So you really want to ask yourself, you know, are you settling? You know, are you settling? And, you know, back to self-love again. And we settle a lot of times because a lot of times we don't feel like we're worthy of what we really desire, you know, or we tell ourselves, no, if I don't settle now, I'll never meet somebody.
No, the universe will align you once you have an intention, or especially if you are like manifesting specific type of person, you write your things down or whatever. Literally everything can change in such small amount of time that you don't have to even like do anything or try to figure it out. You know, you will be put in the opportunities and positions to meet the right person if you like have that intention and are open to it.
You're open and receptive, you know. That's a whole nother topic, but we miss opportunities and miracles that are right around us. But if you're clear on those types of things and your heart is open, your mind is open, then that beautiful spirit that's been waiting to meet you all their life will show up, and it'll be the most beautiful thing. So all those listening, I'm rooting for you in that space, you know. And if you have those in your life already that are a blessing in your life, nurture those relationships so they can become even more of an illuminated spirit where you guys just feel so grateful just to see each other every day. And if you're somebody who's like waiting for that person, or, you know, looking forward to that, we hold space for that person showing up in your life. But within that, love up yourself first and know that you're worthy of the highest and best in every aspect. And I hope you feel the energy and the truth of this, because your beautiful relationships are on the way.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes we like if you think of, okay, your like perfect partner like coming into your life eventually, a lot of us get a little impatient with that, and I understand why, of course. But also, if you think of it from the idea of like, I want to be the best version of myself for when I meet that person, and I would want them to be the best version of themselves so we can actually like work things out. And maybe right now there's a couple little things you got to change within yourself or work on within your mindset, or love yourself deeper before meeting that person and thinking of like, hey, it might not work out if we actually met today. Like maybe you logically want that person in your life yesterday, but maybe that's not actually what you need and want in the long run. So.
Absolutely. Right when I feel like I put a pretty bow tie on it, you know, Cass always has that one more little added to that. But also, I'm so glad that you did say that, because realize, and this is even for myself, is when you feel like a longing for that person, I take peace in the fact as I get better, that means my partner is getting better at the same time. And that makes me so excited to think about how amazing that they'll be.
Yeah.
Are we good now?
I had just an action step because we didn't really talk about how to do this as much. And so one action step that I've been taking that has been huge and really fun and cool is date yourself. Like, not, and we hear that like on the internet. I'm sure people have been scrolling through TikTok where like you see people taking themselves out to the movies and to dinner, and that's amazing. Do that too. But like, I've been asking myself each day, like, how would I be treating the person I would be with in this moment right now? Like, how would I be talking to them if they were talking to me the way I'm talking to myself, you know? Like, and one of those like really kind of cheesy little things that I would enjoy doing with a partner is sending them like a nice good morning text every once in a while, like a nice long thing of like, hey, I'm appreciate you and I'm proud of you because of XYZ and whatever. And so I've been texting myself. I've been like doing that kind of stuff. And it's made a big difference. It makes me feel appreciated. And I feel like that's a fun way, if that resonates with you, to get in that form of self-love and not just be impatiently, anxiously waiting for somebody else to fill you up, you know?
Awesome. And we can, you know, as we, you know, go into season 3, you know, we can kick off the year with, you know, self-love practices that we can add into that, and definitely circle back on relationships. And please reach out to us. Let us know if you've been impacted by this episode. Let us know your life experiences. If there's any way we can hold space for you, any questions you have, any way we can be a blessing in your life, please reach out.
Yes.
And then until next time, I'm Mike.
I'm Cass.
And this is Mike and Cass.
Vibing out.
We love you. Peace.
Thank you.